Hey, East Clayton Explorers. It's good to see you all. I wanted to bring you a couple final messages before we go out for break, which is in just a few days. Unless you're seeing this in the new year, then I hope you had a wonderful break. But if you get to see it this week, the break is close. So let's stay strong and do a wonderful job in class while we have time to finish 2016 off. All right, so today I wanted to bring a few thoughts to you, and I want to go over a couple really big words. I want to talk to you about being humble. I also want to talk to you about being humble in comparison to bragging. Some of you may already know what both of those concepts are, and some of you don't, and that's okay. We're going to go over it. And then after we talk about those things, I want to talk to you about the importance of appreciation. A lot of times we talk about being grateful and being thankful, especially since we just finished the month of November, and in the month of November we talk about Thanksgiving a lot, and that goes into being grateful and thankful, but that's not something that's just appropriate for November. All right, so first, when we think about being humble, it's very important. If I were to think about being humble in terms of an emoji, this is the emoji that I would consider to be humble. So see how this person is just smiling and they're content, or not this person, but this emoji. This is what I imagine humble to look like. And we'll talk a little bit more about what it means. Now, if I'm thinking about bragging, if somebody brags a lot, this is the emoji that comes to mind, because people who brag talk about themselves quite a bit. And usually when you talk about yourself, it doesn't necessarily make people impressed with you. It just makes them feel like you have a need to talk about yourself. So that's not always a good thing. In fact, if you're bragging on yourself, it's not a good thing. It's typically good to brag on other people. So we're going to talk about that as well. First, let me make my window a little bit bigger. Hey, so I want us to talk about being humble versus bragging with figurines, because I don't have any little actors in my room, so I'm going to have to use these figurines. This is Susie, and this is Molly, and we're going to talk about how Susie can be humble, and she's going to demonstrate that for you, while Molly is going to play a role of a more bragging personality, and we're going to see how it plays out. Susie and Molly are in the same class with one another, and they just got their math test back. Susie made a 95, and she's very proud of it. She worked really hard. She studied for a really long time, and she asked her teacher for help every single time she didn't understand a concept. That's how she earned her 95, and she's proud, and she should be. Molly also earned a 95 on her test. But let's see how they both choose to react. And Molly is equally proud of herself, but when they come up to each other, let's say it's recess time or something. So they're both walking around the track, and Molly goes, "Hey Susie, how are you today?" "Oh, hey Molly, I'm good. How about you? What do you think about that math test? It was a little bit tough, huh?" "Yeah, it was really hard, but I made a 95 because I'm so smart." "What did you make?" And Susie's like, "Oh, well, I'm happy with my grade, but it was definitely tough. It was a tricky one." "Yeah, but I totally aced it." So Molly just kind of keeps on going on and on about how well she did, instead of being modest or humble and keeping her accomplishment to herself like Susie chose to. So that's one way that somebody could be bragging. Another way that somebody might brag is if, sorry, I'm playing with my little figurines, is if you've got two people who have different toys. Sometimes people brag about things that they have. You don't have to brag about things you have to show that you are well taken care of and that you have cool stuff, but sometimes people feel that they need to. And that's a misconception. You don't need to. The less you brag, the more confident you appear, and the more people understand that you're well taken care of and you have all the stuff that you need. So let's say that Well, I'll let you figure out who is bragging in this situation. In this situation, this will be Jane, and this will be Billy. All right, so Jane and Billy, they're a little bit younger. They're having center time in the classroom, and they both go over to housekeeping. So they're playing, and Jane goes, "Hey Billy, I like your frisbee. It's too bad it's not as cool as mine I have at home. It's purple and it's got neon lights that go all around it, and it lights up every time you throw it." And now Billy, he didn't really care about a neon lit up frisbee until Jane started to talk about one. So now Billy starts to think to himself, "Oh, I don't have a frisbee like that at home. I don't have any frisbee at home. Oh, I think I need a frisbee at home. I feel bad about this." This is what happens when people brag. It makes other people feel like they don't have things that they need, even though, does Billy need a frisbee that lights up and is neon? No, he doesn't need that. He's just feeling that way because Jane felt it was so important that she needed to brag on herself about it. If Jane had come over and she was just talking about whatever was in the housekeeping center, everything would be great. If she had stayed humble about that really cool frisbee that she stayed at home. So you don't have to talk about what you have. You don't have to talk about the grades that you get. What's important is talking about how hard you work or how much you appreciate what you have. It's not important to just brag on yourself or what you have. It would be cool if Jane walked over and Billy was working real hard on a block tower, and Jane decided that she would brag on Billy, and she could walk over and be like, "Oh my goodness, Billy, you are doing so good on that block tower. Yesterday you only got it up 10 blocks high, and now you're up to 12? Wow, awesome job, Billy." Now that is an appropriate brag. Okay? And just remain humble in all that you have, because being humble means to think less of yourself and more of others, and being humble points out that you don't have to tell everybody about how wonderful you are. People will just see it on their own. The term humble, let me switch back to this screen, is really similar to the term humility. And I found a quote that I wanted to share with you about humility that I think is really insightful. So this quote says, "Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less." So just because somebody is humble or modest or has a lot of humility, that doesn't mean that they don't care about themselves. They care a great deal about themselves, and they love themselves as a person, because we should all do that. But they think more of other people than of themselves. That's so important. Please keep that in mind. Another thing that I think of when I think about bragging is I think about people feeling like they need to compete with one another. So here's a good quote I found about competition. If you continuously compete with others, so if you always compete with others, you're always trying to be the fastest in your class, you're always trying to get done on the spelling test the quickest, or you're always trying to just be the front of the line, all of these things, you're competing, you become bitter because you can't always be the best at everything, nor should you want to. Everyone has their own set of skills that they're good at, and being well-rounded doesn't mean being good at absolutely everything. But if you always compete with yourself, you become better. Compete with yourself, you might be saying in your head. What does that even mean? Competing with yourself means try to do better than you did the last time, every single time you do something. Right now, this is the second time I've done this recording, because the last time I did it, I knew I could improve. And if I did it a third time, I could probably improve a little bit more, but we don't necessarily need to get things perfect. But if you are on your spelling test and you know last time you got 4 out of 6 questions right, or spellings right, that's wonderful. Sorry, I'm going to silence that real quick. But next time you can get 5 out of 6 of the words right. Or maybe you can do better at identifying the different patterns in your spelling words. There's always a way to compete with yourself to make yourself the best version of you possible. So keep working towards making yourself a better person. Work on thinking less of yourself and more of others. And finally, this word appreciation means to be thankful. We're going into another time of year when a lot of people give each other gifts. Even if you don't give each other gifts in your family, you should still always be appreciative of what you have. Are you going to a home that has heat? Are you fed, whenever you're hungry? These are things that we take for granted, but we shouldn't, because not everyone is this fortunate. So be appreciative of what you have. Don't rub it in other people's face when you have really cool stuff, because it can make other people feel bad, and you don't want that. You really care about other people, even if sometimes your behaviors don't show that. So let's work on being appreciative of what we have, think about others more than ourselves, and work on bragging on other people. Don't brag on yourself, because people will know that you're a strong and awesome person when you don't talk about yourself. I hope some of these words are helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day.